And my father decided that he wanted to move to a succession position with his sons, or with his family. It's an extended family with step siblings and alike, which makes it complex. It very quickly went south. There was some discomfort and heated debate, I suppose, about what succession should look like. And at that time, there was a falling out between my brother and my father and myself, pretty much.
Nick, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
I can remember sitting on the edge of the bed at home one night, quite defeated. There's not a lot in that period of time that anyone could have done when you're a new business with that level of debt that you're taking to stave off this. There's just no miracles that can come. The board laughed, told me that I was an idiot, that they didn't have a lot of faith that this young idiot could actually deliver this, and everyone pulled together. The culture shifted, a burning platform was found, and lots of courage came with it, and we managed to turn the business from a $24 million annual revenues to just under or just over $60 million in 18 months. You have to be passionate, and you have to have purpose, and you have to love what you're doing. If you're doing it for money and power, then you're probably not going to last very long.
Nick, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. You too. I'm excited to be here.
It's been a very kind of interesting journey you've had with the company. Take us back to when you became the owner, what that process looked like. And it's not been the smoothest journey for a few different reasons. I think there was some health issues along the way as well. So what drove your decision to take over the company, and what was going through your mind when you kind of got the acquisition done? I
guess I need to go back a little way just to set the scene from what was actually happening in the business at the time. But AME is a family business. It was established by my father and three other gentlemen back in the late or mid 70s in Melbourne, and then relocated. And then in the mid or early 2000s, the family of my father decided that he wanted to move to a succession position with his sons, or with his family. It's an extended family with step siblings and alike, which makes it complex. So at the time, the whole family was given the opportunity to take interest in the business. There were a couple of rules that were required at that time. That is, you had to relocate from wherever you were to the country town, which at the time my family wasn't so keen on, with businesses that we were already involved in. After a little bit of reflection on it, we made the decision. My family made the decision to move to regional Victoria, to Ararat, and join my brother, who was already in the business at the time. And I entered the business as in an engineering role, given that's sort of my background. It very quickly went south. There was, as a lot of family businesses and succession, and there's a lot of learning here actually from a succession perspective in family business. There was some discomfort and heated debate, I suppose, about what succession should look like. And at that time, there was a falling out between my brother and my father and myself, pretty much, or our families. And my brother left, and I took a sort of dual role, being an engineering and sales role, and made the decision that I would just stick in the business. We'd moved my family, and we'd made personal investments in property and the like there, and just made the decision that I would work in the company for to the end of time, essentially. We had other businesses running as well, so we were dual operating a construction company in Melbourne, and working as an engineer and a sales manager for AME Systems. A bit of time went by, and our board, or independent non-executive board members, decided that they would appoint general manager, which they did. I was one of those applicants at the time, but given the history that had happened between the family, it was sort of seen that maybe I'm not the best option for the business. Which is, looking back on it, was probably fair enough. Probably wasn't really ready for it at the time. And so they did that, and it didn't work so well. The business really started to recede in revenue, and people were getting quite disgruntled with the election of the person, and the decision was then made to go looking for an alternative managing director at the time, so my father could be released and go on with his retirement. The board, alongside some HR consultants, went looking for an appropriate MD, and at that time my name was still mud, and so I put my hat in the ring again anyway, because if you're not in it, you can't win it. So I put my hat in, and they went looking around, and didn't really uncover the person that they were that they were looking for, with the depth that they were looking for to manage the business. So, and it was an absolute surprise to me that post going through some from neurological, psychological sort of testing and a lot of testing through external HR providers, the external provider came out and suggested that the person that should be operating and directing the company was already in it, and it happened to be me. And at the time, I didn't know that. And 6 months went by, and I got called to an external meeting, private, separate from the business itself, and walked into a room, and there were the board members sitting there looking to have a fairly serious conversation with me at the time. And I guess at that point it was December of 2014, and I can remember it like nothing else, to be honest, because it was it was quite a tough period of time from a family perspective and a business perspective. And I was given 6 months. Essentially, I was 6 months contract, and I think the 6 months was really just to prove our external consultants that this kid. At the time, I'm a kid, and I'm still a kid now at 48. This kid doesn't have it, and so they to shut her up. Essentially, they gave me a contract for 6 months, and not too many CEOs can do much in 6 months. It takes a lot of effort to shift culture and to strategize and to leverage a business. And I'd introduced a few of the people that I'd met externally to the business through Melbourne Business School. And within a very short period of time, we'd established a new strategy new 5-year strategy, a new cultural strategy. I think we removed 50 odd people in the space of weeks, trying to remove elements of the culture that just weren't quite right. That sent shockwaves, obviously, through the organisation and created a burning platform. We presented to the board a strategy that looked at as much as tripling the company's revenues, in what was a 3 to 4 year period over, like a 5-year plan. And the board laughed, told me that I was an idiot, and that, not an idiot, but that they didn't have a lot of faith that this young idiot could actually deliver this. And, strangely enough, everyone pulled together, the culture shifted, a burning platform was found, and lots of courage came with it, and we managed to turn the business from a $24 million annual revenues to just under or just over $60 million in 18 months. So with that growth and what was really quite a stretch target, the board very quickly gained comfort that this young fella perhaps was the right person for the role, and additional learning was sort of attached onto it, and I reported to the board from 2014 through to 2019, and during that period, the idea of succession came back on. There was an offer or an attempt to sell the business to the open market, which didn't really gain much. It got interest, but not the interest that was going to sustain the business in Ararat, which is again one of the major parts of our story as an organisation. So I made the offer to acquire the company from the then owner being my father and the remainder of the family, given that it's a family of 7 kids essentially that are from split families, and so I acquired the business at going terms that were organised by local valuers, and that happened on the 17th of July 2019, probably the worst period of in history, really, to extend debt and put yourself into risk. But anyway, we did it, not knowing that what was about to happen. At that time, the banks, banks were really quite complex to get credit from a loan of that size in a manufacturing business in Australia that's very bespoke. But because I'd had time behind the wheel as the MD, that brought some confidence, and the bank actually lent me the money against the business's balance sheet without taking any personal guarantees. So I didn't have to put my house up or risk my family in that sense, which was not something that you see every day, particularly in this sort of field. So we took we took the shares of the business and signed the documents on the 17th July 2019. Everyone was happy. We were moving forward in strategy, and then obviously COVID hit. Actually prior to COVID hitting, it was only a couple of months past that we had a fair amount of tragedy in the family. My stepmother, my father's wife, obviously, who had just relieved themselves of the business and the responsibility of the business, and ready to go into retirement. And unfortunately, my stepmother lost her life in the September, which was obviously very tragic. We were trying to help my father through the process, and then he passed away in the December on Boxing Day of that year as well. So, and at the same time, in the November, my wife at the time, we lost her father through all that period. It was a few months later, I was diagnosed with a neural disorder called trigeminal neuralgia, which is an excruciating nerve pain that is very hard to detect, very hard to fix. And it for me, it was through the trigeminal nerve through the face, so through the right side of my face. And I ended up on very high dosages of sort of beta blockers, essentially, to try and block the pain from it, which I did for 6 or 8 and maybe 12 months. And it got to the point where your body gets used to those drugs, and you have to take higher dosages of that. Your liver then starts to take effect, and it just affects your whole nervous system, your ability to operate. It was excruciating, and it's known in street terms as the suicide disease, because it's often it's uncurable. You can't find it. I was very fortunate that my stepfather, who's also a GP and a very, very good doctor, found me a neurosurgeon that would take it on. Initially they didn't really want to, but I managed to convince them that the surgery needed to be done. And right in the middle of COVID, whole business is turning, businesses are failing, and money's difficult to come by. I had no choice really. I put myself into the private hospital and in Melbourne here, and Andrew Danks, who I forever owe him and the people around him that took out this surgery. Did the surgery, and within, you're supposed to be on your back for 6 weeks essentially, or longer, and the expectation is that you don't move for 6 or 8 weeks. At that time, with the support of my people at AME, my team, my family really is what they are. I managed to get back on my feet within 2 weeks and be back in the office. And I reckon that if the COVID rules had allowed me to be back there within 2 days, I would have tried to do that. It was a really complex time, but I have to say that the people that I work with and my senior executive group, all the way through to our plant staff, and I don't really like calling them staff because they're plant family in some ways. Backed me and my family to the absolute hilt. We didn't lose a single job through that period. I'll say we carried everyone, but we didn't. They carried me is the real answer. And people, went without. They moved their mortgages out. Their banks negotiated to not pay anything other than interest or nothing at all. People agreed that they would work only 2 days and take 2 days' pay, and those sorts of things to defend the company, and more importantly, and it was to defend me. And so I'm indebted to a lot of people through that period. One, surgeons that take those sort of risks, and they're amazing people. And two, the people I work with every day, and those people are all there now, kicking goals every day of the week. The company's going from strength to strength. So it's an amazing organisation, and more so, it's a family.
Wow, amazing story. Take us back to you've had the operation. You've been told it's been successful, and you're back in the office. You're at your desk. What are you thinking at that point? What's your mindset?
it's a remarkable time really to reflect on. Lots of people had lots of different experiences through COVID. Families being shut down and all those things. I guess for us that we've got a great team of people, which, as I said, but we've also got amazing customers. We've got amazing suppliers that have been very loyal to us for 45, 50 years nearly of the organisation. That many of them offered us extended terms. The only thing that I think during that time I was quite disappointed with was that the banks, even though getting into the business they were really supportive, but at that time trying to get support from the banks, when you're essentially a new business with a lot of mouths to feed, the banks weren't very supportive. They'd offer more credit, but not support in getting through that time. So that will be something that I won't ever forget, in the sense that you can't always rely on those outside to get you where you need to get to. It's got to be the tenacity of the people in the business, and we took that challenge. And I think more so that we were very fortunate that we've got AAA rated customers in 95% of our order book. They're all US based. Primes, companies like Packer or Kenworth here in Australia, they manage their supply chain and supported their supply chain. We're one of those with total honesty and total openness, protected their family and their supply chain really, really very well. And look, if it weren't for Packer, there's no way we wouldn't have made it. And I guess the other element to that, I can remember sitting on the edge of the bed at home one night, quite defeated. And there's not a lot in that period of time that anyone could have done when you're a new business with that level of debt that you're taking to stave off this. There's just no miracles that can come. And so I made a phone call to our local member at the time, federal member at the time, the Liberal Party. His name's Dan Teen, who's I'm indebted to. Again, he's become somewhat a close friend through this process. Sat on the edge of the bed at 7:30 at night, and I called him at home. I hadn't had much of a relationship with him prior to this, and suggested to him that, look, we need help. If we can't get help from government to keep this thing moving. At the time, the government was putting money through Centrelink, and people were lining up in the streets. I think the same thing was happening in the US. People were lining up trying to get financial support, and it just wasn't the answer. It couldn't get money to people quickly enough, and the problem is it wasn't flowing through business to support the businesses. Because at the end of the day, if you've got all these businesses collapsing around you, then there's no point handing money out to the people, because at the end, when it runs out, there's nowhere for them to go. So we had that conversation with Dan that night, and it was only a matter of days. The JobKeeper, whether you like it or hate it, from my perspective, there's some failure in it, in the sense that lots of money went out to people that didn't really need it. But in the case of Ararat and AME Systems and at the time, the 450 people we were employing, they absolutely needed it, and the business needed it, and it saved us, no question. So there's a multitudes of things that have happened through that period of time: health, family, pandemics. I think, look, in all, it has shown the power within our organisation and the culture within our organisation to really work through anything.
The amount of difficulty you went through there in such a condensed period of time. What impact did that have on you as a person, as a leader, as a business owner?
You need to be careful with this, because it's a thing that makes me really quite emotional. I can remember, and whether it's an overreaction or not, I'll let you decide, but I can remember leading up to this operation, and it was happening quite quickly. Couldn't see the surgeon personally. It was like this, via a digital connection, and so it was really, on the Tuesday on a Zoom call to a surgeon that I've never met, and then 3 weeks later, I'm meeting him in an ICU ward of a private hospital in Melbourne to drill a hole in the side of my head. And leading into that, trying to establish what was really a new business that acquired by myself, and trying to rush through wills that protect my family and protect my boys and protect the business more than anything and the people in the business. I had wills written basically ready for death, essentially. But, at worst case, death, and, at a mid case, I could end up, not being able to function, the way that the business would need me to. So I got ready to sign over. If anything happened to me, 50% of the business was going to be signed over to my very, very close colleague who's been with the business for 35 years or thereabouts. Dean, and he's sort of like my non-blood brother, and the remainder was in trust for my two boys, which maintained them, and it was really to ensure that if something happens to me, that the legacy of my father and of the organisation carried on. So, and I can just, the emotion that was within you, going into something like that, to have someone to bore a hole in your side of your head. Lots of people do it. They're much stronger than me, obviously, but it's had a profound impact, and more so on, the empathy and gratitude for what's happening in my life. And some of those things is to make the hard changes. And so post this work, I ended up personally in a divorce from my wife, my then wife. Just recognising that life is way, way too short to be, staying in a position where it's not ideal. And so for me, my boys are, absolutely my priority. And then outside of that, this business and the people in it, every reason to get out of bed every single day. And, that the surgeries are sort of really finite that. And I think it's partly to do, it has something to do with the success that we're having in different parts of the industry now too. I think it's got a culture of gratitude, and I do, and I personally do too.
Obviously, being in the broad manufacturing sector, you mentioned, so you touched on just before technology and what role that might play. What technologies are you most excited about, and do you think will have the biggest impact on your business over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a challenging question actually. Obviously everyone's talking about AI, and our business has been a little lax when it comes to digital technologies. When I say lax, it's mostly because the complexity of the business, or what we deem to be complex, the rest of the world might see it differently, or the right person might see it differently. We've had a lot of trouble attracting staff to appropriately talented people into those roles. We've used outsourced partners to try and help us with technology, and when I say technology, I'm talking more about digital technologies more so than processing technologies, because we're in our processing portion of the business we're pretty good. Yeah. We have most of the automation that's available to us in our market, being a bespoke market, we have, yeah. And we continue to make those investments. The thing that is going to take us to the next level is that digital tool, being able to use, big data, if you want to use a cliche, to then optimize the processes and bring greater efficiencies to our machinery and to our people. That has been probably the biggest challenge for us. That we've wasted. And I'll say wasted because it really is wasted. Probably $3 million in the previous attempt to renew and innovate our digital systems. We've managed to attract a very dedicated, hardworking ICT manager who is travelling every day. Very thankfully, he has pretty much given up his personal life. Mostly because he's got that much tenacity, I suppose, and he just won't allow failure. So, which I absolutely admire and are very thankful for. So his name is Brendan, and he and our engineering manager Klaus, who I was talking about earlier, have both got major programs on. We're investing multiple millions of dollars in software technologies that are in engineering design and flow all the way through to manufacturing processes and basically Industry 4, really bringing that connection between people, software and technology, being processing technology into our business to get that data available to us more readily. We've gone live on one portion of that program of works. and I can probably wipe a little bit of sweat off the brow. It's hugely complex, and that's where the issue is. That make anyone that's in the wire harness business, when you look at it, it just looks like something so simple, but when you delve into the idiosyncrasies and complexities of all the processes, software just doesn't exist for it, and it's we've learnt that. It's cost a lot of money to learn that you just have to have the right people and the right skills to deliver stuff like this, and we're very, very close. And so I'd like to say 6 months, and I think my team is saying 6 months, but it's probably more like 12 to 18 months. We will have a fully integrated end-to-end software package that is totally integrated, and it will absolutely change our business. Coupling that with the AI tools that are becoming available to us, it's even more important now than ever in the competitive world that we're in, with receding volumes, that our systems just have to be as smart as possible, and we have to remove as much of the waste as we can possibly remove. And I think that's the next 3 or 4 year journey for us, is just getting those systems. What
did you do differently in terms of either how you hired the person, how you sort of set them up? What were the key lessons you learned?
There's a multitude of answers to this, I think. One, the biggest mistake we made, and I probably shouldn't air this, but I will. The biggest mistake we made, and I will say this respectively, because with a lot of respect, because the people I'm about to oust, I respect immensely, and that is we had a board of independent people at the time with a lot of global experience. Some of the gents that were on our board were, I'll call them grey haired. There's a lot of experience there, and with it came some ego, I think, and I allowed the board to push for us to implement these technologies too early. And it was with the right reason that the board was pushing. It was mostly because, we didn't have the right people on board. So it really does start with me and making sure that I'm attracting the right people from the get-go. And that's a lesson that the business now, we won't move. If we can't find the right person, we won't hire at all. And it was the mistake we really made. And then the second mistake really was allowing our board to push for that investment to be leveraged, and we weren't ready. We went too early, and it nearly sunk the business trying to do it. And this is an ERP implementation. And the other side of that was, we allowed an external source, and I don't know anyone that's been through ERP systems, and particularly in manufacturing. And I say this not tongue in cheek, but a little bit cheekily, and that is that everything is out of the box. I mean, and for every technology provider that we interviewed, and we did probably 8 or 9 through the process, wrote proper bids, and I think from a business perspective, we did it pretty well. It wasn't complete as it probably should have been, but it was done pretty well. And I think we fell to the sales agent from many of these large ERP companies that are suggesting that it's out of the box, and the facts are they don't understand your business the way that you do. I was arrogantly trying not to reproduce the systems that we already had, and trying to get change management to happen through our organisation, to have people ready to let go of, we use the language, let go of the nut, to let go of the ingrained processes that are within our organisation, and be open-minded to new ways of doing things and ways that are more efficient and effective. And I think we went too far that way, and we allowed service providers or ERP providers to sell to us something that was out of the box. And in reality, when it came to going live, one, we went too early, knowing that we weren't really ready, and the board did apply pressure to us to leverage it, which is somewhat a board's job. We're spending the shareholders' money, make sure that it's returning for us, but which is absolutely my accountability as the CEO. But I guess outside of that, my error was really entrusting in service providers external to us to deliver something that they didn't really understand. And this time around, we've done something totally different. In fact, we've found our own expert, our own experts, and we're managing that process internally with assistance from external resources to help in particular areas where they've got expertise. So we've got 5 or 6 different contractors with expertise in different areas of business, helping us bring together controlled internally by our own people to make sure that we get it right. And I'm confident this time round that we will get it right.
Thank you for sharing that. There's so much great knowledge in there. And as I'm listening to you sort of talk through those, I'm thinking as well, obviously completely different business that we're in. I'm thinking we've done a lot of the same stuff. A lot of the same.
Everyone does
a lot of the same mistakes.
I've heard some horror stories from customers of ours that have spent $14 and $18 million on ERP systems and then just have to walk away from them and go again. And
it's interesting, as you can probably imagine. On the podcast, we've spoken a lot about AI and implementation of AI, and we've had lots of different perspectives and genuine kind of industry leaders who are leading the conversation. And the thing they're saying is, don't go too big too soon. If you're looking at AI, take a process that's sort of back office. It's not going to have a big impact on the business. Implement AI there first and build that muscle. But so often, like you experience this pressure from the board, or we're thinking, wow, if we're not fully using AI, next week our competitor's going to be twice as productive as we are. And there's that kind of pressure. To run and run fast, and it's probably the worst thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess from an AI perspective, and I'm absolutely unexperienced when it comes to what AI is going to deliver to our business, and I'm very reliant on one. We're trying to educate ourselves at a pace, and that pace is fast. Technology is moving so quickly. But the one thing I do know from this is, and learnings from previous ERP and digital transformations within our organisation, that is, garbage in, garbage out. And one thing we don't want learning is garbage from AI, and we don't want that repeated in our data set. So there's a lot of work going into making sure that when we go live and we start using these tools, that if someone may be ahead of us, but it doesn't matter, that we need to get it right.
Let's zoom out a little bit and maybe just look at the Australian economy, something you're quite passionate about. You've spoken, certainly to me, about a concern that Australia, like a lot of kind of Western economies, has been losing that kind of manufacturing base. You guys, like you said, you've managed to grow the business, but it's been tough. So what do you think's at stake if something doesn't change soon in terms of losing that manufacturing base?
Yeah, it's a good question, and again, it's an area that I need to tread on cautiously. But I've thought about this a lot actually. That I used to think that government's job was to set the scene and then sort of get out of the way and allow industry to do what it needs to do. And I still believe that should be the case, that business shouldn't be necessarily relying on government for sustainability and for survival, but businesses should also be relying on the government to write policy that sets the scene for them to be able to be successful. And I think that, for a business like ours, we saw this coming, really 25 or 30 years ago with the auto sector. Our business historically was an auto company, manufacturing for General Motors and for Nissan and Mitsubishi and the like in much higher volumes. The business that we have, the market that we're in now, was sort of in the corner. It was in the dark corner. It was the evil stepsister, so to speak. But we saw 20 odd years ago, or 25 years ago plus, that this was going to happen in Australia, and so we moved out of the auto sector pretty much of our own volition into bespoke manufacturing, so heavy vehicle, defence, and we've moved further into aerospace markets. And I think there's always going to be a need for those sorts of markets in bespoke. In a bespoke manner in Australia and in through Europe and the UK and the like, I think. But I do think that that's at risk. If you're going to put industry in any Western country, you're going to push industry in competition to the world, then the platform needs to be innovative, obviously, because we're a high-cost organisation, but it also needs to allow businesses to make some of its own decisions. And I think what's happening in Australia anyway with, we've got Victorian government at the moment talking about mandating working from home. which, you know, if businesses can make working from home an acceptable thing and a workable thing for them, then you know, who needs to interfere with that? Not me. But likewise, nor should the government. And I don't think they should be mandating to businesses what they do and don't do as far as, you know, working from home, and a lot of the other policies that are being written right now. I think our governments need to move away from writing policy that restricts industry. They need to move to a position where it actually encourages innovation and it encourages new technologies and the like. And it should stay away from mandating who and when people work.
And you mentioned before, I think a lot of your clients are US based.
Pretty much all.
Is that right? Pretty much all. Yeah. So very interesting to get your perspective as a CEO outside of the US who relies on the US market. How are you sort of coping with what's happening here at the moment? How are you planning for that? And what's your outlook moving forward?
Look, in all, I haven't really thought too deeply about that, to be honest. I'm more thoughtful about the tariff impact that it has on our business, because it creates rising costs, obviously. So you've got US supply chain that are procuring parts from Mexico, China, you know, all over the world, and they are American companies supplying us, which then creates a tariff cost and increase the cost of our manufacturing, which we absolutely don't want, obviously, just to remain competitive. But I would say that you know, working for US based primes, you know, we have for 45 years really, our main customers have been US based companies. We have very strong relationships. We assimilate very well with similar cultures. It is very challenging to export into the US market. I think, and that's a good thing in a sense of if you're American, because Americans are very patriotic. It's something that Australia seems to have lost. You know, America sort of seems to have this America First policy that's not written. Well, it is now that Mr. Trump's in place, but I don't think he necessarily needed to write that, because Americans are very patriotic, and so that's been a challenge for us, that trying to get into that market. But in all, you know, I'm very proud to say that our customers are again American based in the main. They look after us. They pay us well. They're very secure customers. Like I said, we got through COVID because of the capacity of those customers to manage themselves, their fiscal capacity, you know, to pay their bills when they need to, and you know, we've survived on that. So obviously we're very thankful for those customers.
And for your son, if he, maybe this conversation's already taken place, or maybe it will, if he comes to you and asks, you know, Dad, I want your advice on how I should build my career, what would your advice to him be? Would it be go away, do your studies, learn somewhere else and come back? Or would it be, no, you're going to learn everything here on site? How would you navigate that?
So we've been through this. One of these conversations was really quite painful, I have to say, and very happy to share with you, because I'm quite passionate about this actually. I've got two boys, Alec and Jacob, who I love dearly. That everything that happens in my world is really for them. Alec's 20-year-old. He's now at Swinburne here in Melbourne, studying to do bioscience at Swinburne. My youngest son, Jacob, he's in year 11. He's at Clarendon College in Ballarat, which is a wonderful school. He's very passionate about politics and economics, so he's likely to go into business marketing or economics. And his plan is to go overseas and then come back and kick me out. But the story really is more about my oldest son, in the sense that you know, he's a very gifted kid. He's tall, like he's 6'4". I'm not sure where he got that from, but he's 6'4". He's slim. He's very smart. He attracts a lot of attention. So he's, unlike myself, you know, he's fortunate with ladies taking interest in him. So which is wonderful. And he's very careful about the decisions he makes. He's got a fine young partner in his life already. But when he finished school, his mindset was to become a lawyer, to do law commerce, and all the way through primary school, he had this mindset. And it wasn't until he finished year 12, got his ATAR, and when I realised that the pressure, that the unintentional pressure that I was providing or applying to him to be something in the world was something that he didn't want to be. And I think as a parent, what I really wanted was for him, and we had this conversation really quite firmly in the end. It ended up in a lot of discomfort between both of us and plenty of crying on both sides of the hat because I couldn't get him off the couch. And it's a generational scenario. I'm not saying that in a bad way either, to be honest, because I think it's a good thing in a sense. But I allowed and he allowed what the perception of my want for him to be a lawyer. And to be honest, really all I wanted for him was to be the best that he could be at whatever he chose. But I couldn't get that message through, mostly because, I'm quite a driven individual and the boys do see me sort of demanding outcome somewhat. I don't necessarily see myself like that, but they do. And so that's reality, I suppose. And so in the end, after him sort of laying around for many months, not making a decision and not doing something post high school and getting his ATAR score, I said to him, mate, I don't care if you're a bricklayer or a builder or an electrician or whatever. Just be the very best. So if you're going to be a bricklayer, just be the best bricklayer, and I'll be proud of you. And so just do whatever it is that inspires you. And I guess this is the challenge for young people now, and I'm watching it happen not necessarily with my youngest son, but with the step kids that are around me at the moment, and their friends, that there's such a opportunity for young people when they go to school that they're told that they can be anything in the world, and that's somewhat true, I think. But there's no limitation to them in any way. Whereas when I was a kid, I was told, Nick, you're a little short, fat, dumb kid. You're not going to be a lawyer. So stop looking over there. You know what I mean? And so, and I think there's absolutely something in that. And it's something that I missed that with the upbringing of my kids. And I think it's something that our schooling system's missing as well. That give opportunity, but make sure it's aligned to the passion that a person has, identifying that really early in life. Making sure that we're putting them on the path that does actually inspire them, because there's a lot of pain for people getting that wrong. Not everyone's as fortunate as what I seem to be, in a job that I truly love. I own the company, but even if I didn't, I'm passionate about what we do, and the people that I work with are passionate as well. And I'd really love to see that, that my kids are doing the same thing. And so I guess the answer to that is yes, go away, experience something, and then work out what it is you're passionate about. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be going to university and being a lawyer. It can quite happily be, picking weeds out of a garden, if that's the thing that does it for you. So I guess just do what you love. And so in that story, young Alec, who's now 20, went off and he thought he wanted to be in agriculture. So he went off and worked on farms, and he worked really hard. I'm really proud of him. And, he's a bit of a smart ass and he knows everything. And I think that's probably frustrated the farmers that he was working with, but it also created, a bit of learning for him and a reality for him. And he came back after 12 months and realised that with the help of my partner, Emily, who sort of identified in him that he seems to light up when he's talking about genetics and chemical engineering and physics and the like. So he's now doing a degree in at Swinburne. He got accepted, and he's nearly a year down, and he's going to come out absolutely passionate about it. When I talk to him about it, I've got no idea what he's talking about, but it sounds very interesting, and most importantly, he just loves it. And so I'm hoping that, to me, it doesn't really matter, that just do something, not nothing. Yeah. And if he's got interest in the business in 5 or 6 years or 10 years time, that he can then come and bring his experience to it, then there'll be opportunity for him.
We just want to see them try, right? Like that's if you've got and it's maybe not even just about children. I don't want to sound patronising, but you can maybe think about it with employees, and you want to create that environment where people are prepared to try the best, and if it's not right, that's okay, and you learn and you move on, you try the next thing, and that's all we're really looking for. I'm
experiencing that in the business now, where we've got the next generation coming through. Fortunately, we're attracting some really high quality people out of our community. That I'll call them kids, but they're not. It's probably not the right thing to say, but young people coming in from school, and they're wonderful young people with so much capacity. But the thing that we're struggling with is aligning them to something that can add value to them and to the business for a long time. They're hugely smart. And so I've got a young fella who's working, I won't label him, but I won't name him, but working within the business, who I think very highly of, and I would really love to see him doing something that inspires him. If that means working out of the business in his own business, if our business AME would absolutely help him educate and help him even finance into something like that, because there's something about him that is enduring, Yeah. And so we've offered him a blank sheet. Just work out what it is that inspires you. Now, what inspires him at the moment, what motivates him at the moment, is money and power, which is most young people coming into business, that's what they want, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not a purpose.
Yeah.
And so the young people coming in, they're amazing. They've got so much capacity and they do things so much more efficiently than half of the people my age can ever do. They take on technology so well, but they lack purpose. And it's not a criticism. It's a criticism of my generation teaching them and really not telling them off enough, and not giving enough boundary to what they're doing so that they can focus in the right areas of their life. And then I think people are going to be being depressed and medicating themselves now so much, because there is so much opportunity. There's no limitation to anything. And then when you come out after getting a trophy from coming 28th from school, you go into the real world into a job, and you realise, well, you don't get a trophy for just turning up. You've got to turn up with passion and I think there's plenty of capacity and passion in these kids. They just don't know where to aim it.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to, say there's executives or business owners listening to this right now who are very passionate about their local communities? What's a piece of advice you would give to them about how to build something that creates that lasting and positive impact?
That's a tough question, particularly in the environment that we're in. I've been fortunate to acquire an ongoing business that's sort of already got its foundation. So I think for people, particularly in manufacturing, to try and establish something in Australia is complex. I'm not sure what sort of advice I'd give to them, but ultimately, for us, it's been finding the right customer that aligns to your principles and values. And I think culture within an organisation really is the priority, and that culture needs to be one of care and innovation and customer focus and quality. We've lost opportunity with customers, and you might lose it for two or 3 years, but that enduring culture and focus on quality and principle and value has been the thing that wins for us. We've won customers purely off the back of the way that we talk to each other. We've won business with one of the biggest defence companies in the world. Really off the back of just aligning to a culture of care for people. A desire to service customer and to give value. Now, we're not the cheapest as far as price is concerned, and I don't want to be in a position where we're fighting only on price. For a young person trying to start a business, is to find that niche that one, you got to be passionate about it. There's a lot of risk in these industries, and you've got to go to work every day absolutely loving and believing in what you do. You really need a niche market where where your process is and your product is valued. And so for me personally, this is not about money. And if it was about money, you wouldn't do it probably. It's about feeling fulfilled and having a purpose to work towards, people that you love working with every day. And if you do that well, then wealth, whatever that looks like for you, because wealth is something different for everybody. Wealth comes. It's an outcome of doing what you love well, I think. I guess that's the advice. Just, you have to be passionate and you have to have purpose and you have to love what you're doing. If you're doing it for money and power, then you're probably not going to last very long.
I'm going to throw some quick fire questions at you. So first thing that comes to mind, one piece of business advice that you live by.
So the quick answer is this. Always stay on higher ground, even if you have to give it away. I went off to Melbourne Business School and tried to extend my learning. And I got more from Melbourne Business School walking every morning with a fella. His name's Terry, and he works for a large building company in Western Australia. And I don't know if Terry knows how much of an impact that he's had on my life, but he has. And so he said to me one day, we're walking each morning. Part of the program, requires you to be fit and healthy and free of mind so much. And I walk with Terry every day. He's probably 55, I suppose, or thereabouts. He'd run away from home when he was 14, and it's one of those sort of movie making stories, really. And I'm not sure how true it was, but I believed it. And Terry was raised by a single mum, trying to do her best, and he ran away from home. It was quite troublesome as a kid, causing a lot of havoc within his community. And his mother managed to get him into boxing, and the boxer had managed to get him on the straight and narrow, and he found a love for boxing and discipline that came from boxing. So this kid that's come, I'm reading it as he's come from a low socioeconomic outcome that for a lot of people probably wouldn't end well, and he's been very fortunate to meet someone that brought a high level of discipline and principle and value to his life. Anyway, and so I've got a lot of respect for Terry and his stories, and I was complaining about something as we were walking around in the morning, and he took me under his wing as a young fella at the time. And he said just that simply to me, he said, mate, I need to tell you something, that you'll be a much happier person if you just always stay on higher ground, even if you have to give a little bit of it away. And it's absolutely stuck with me. And if you ask my two boys, there's two catchphrases that they'll recite from the minute they can speak, and that is really, the number of people in this world that are truly awesome really are few and far between. And so live like it, and always stay on higher ground, even if you have to give it away, because empathy and humility really is the most important thing the value system that they can live by. And I can very, very proudly say that both of those boys, when I'm looking anyway, and they better be doing it when I'm not looking, I can tell you, are carrying themselves in that way, and it makes me very proud. But that's, Terry Evans is the guy's name. He's had a massive impact on my life and on my kids' lives.
A habit you swear by, which keeps you grounded.
I wish I had a list of those. They're habits I'm trying to embed, to be honest. One of the things I wish I was better at anyway, to answer that, would be to be disciplined enough to keep myself fit and healthy, so I can live a long life. But I don't know if I really have a habit that I can live by, to be honest. It's really my business is sort of all enthralling, and family is all enthralling, and there's a lot of habits I should take on. I know that for sure. I know I should be ringing my best friends, at least once a week. I should be talking to my brother more often and my sister more often. Perhaps you'll inspire me to do that.
And then the two final questions. So these have become a bit of a tradition. We're asking these to each guest. First one is, what's one thing that you've changed your mind about recently, and why?
I think we probably covered this a little bit earlier, but I don't think that, I used to think that it wasn't up to government or anyone else to bring success. That success was from within the walls of a business and within the power of a CEO. And I still do believe that. And I believe that firmly for most of my career, that opportunity really in this country, it has been anyway, rife for anyone, to have a go. If you're willing to take a risk and to have a go in Australia, then really there's nothing holding you back except yourself.
Agree.
I did that at an early age, starting my own companies and had some success. I've had failures and lost money and whatever, but it's a very forgiving country to live in. But I'm changing my viewpoint on that, as we said earlier, a little bit. That I think that our governments are interfering and writing policy and law way too much. And I think very similar. If you go through the archives and you listen to Kerry Packer, and if I don't know if you've seen his speech to the courts, but I agree with him in that, and that is our governments just need to make sure they maintain that opportunity for people. And you can't have those opportunities if you're legislating everything that happens, within an industry and within a financial economy. So I think that's probably the thing I'm starting to shift on, and I'm very hopeful that we're able to that our communities are able to really pull a handbrake on some of those decisions and write policy that protects people and people's rights. Absolutely, I'm not advocating. I'm not advocating against wage increases and those sorts of things. They have to happen, and people have to have good lifestyles. But we're going to become uncompetitive. We're going to become overburdened by red and green tape. And I think now's the time for industry to really start pushing back, so that we can go back to the days of opportunity is rife for everybody. You just have to have a go at it. So I do believe that.
And finally, what's one thing you've not changed your mind about? And this is a belief that you would want to share with others.
It's probably similar to the question. I'll phrase it similar to the first question, and it's probably aimed somewhat personally. And I think it is. I personally too often have probably pushed aside my own personal wants and purpose for a period of time, and again having a near-death experience. Not a near-death experience, probably not the right thing to say, but an experience that challenged me, my health exponentially and my mental health, to be able to sort of work through that. Really has brought through that the fact that we need to be on higher ground, we need to be gracious, we need to be empathetic towards people, and they're absolutes value systems that we can't let go. But I think there's also a level of arrogance or ignorance, or whatever word you want to use, where we also need to make sure that we're doing what's right for us as an individual. And I'm referring more to my personal life, that hanging on to please people for the sake of pleasing people, which is somewhat what I've done and other members of my family have done, I think is a mistake. For me, I would say to people, you don't be anything other than empathetic and gracious, because they are values that will get you a very long way in life and in business. But have a purpose that you go after.
I think that really shines through from sort of speaking with you, learning your story, that combination of grit and just resilience, but being able to pair that with the empathy, the care of community. What you've achieved, obviously, over the last number of years has been phenomenal, and wishing you and everyone at AME all the best for what's to come. And thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to reflect on where we're coming from and where we're going. So it's been great.
And there we have it. Nick Carthew of AME Systems. What an incredible interview that was with Nick. So open and authentic, and so much wisdom in there. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Even more importantly, if you know someone who could benefit from the wisdom that Nick shared with us today, please share the episode. I'm David Jepson. See you again next time for CEO Behind the Scenes.